Welcome to Substitute Teacher Orientation for the school year 2021-2022 for Caldwell Independent School District. Today, we will review and understand the different expectations, such as the legal aspects of teaching, professionalism, proper classroom management techniques, the daily routine, and school safety that Caldwell ISD has for its substitute teachers. So first, we will talk about the legal aspects. Students have fewer behavioral issues when the teacher is attentive. Either set classroom expectations or use pre-existing expectations that the teacher will have on the wall, such as a social contract or classroom rules. And it's your responsibility to keep each student safe and orderly. When sending a student to the principal due to discipline matters, the substitute teacher maintains the duties of supervision and due care for both the individual child and the remainder of the class. One of the big legal aspects we have to deal with in education is FERPA, which is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. In a nutshell, FERPA means you cannot talk about a student to anyone outside of the school system. Okay, that means if a parent comes up to you and says, hey, you were substituting in Miss Jane's class yesterday, how did this student behave? Because my daughter says that they are terrorizing the class. You cannot give that information out. You just say, I don't know. If you have any concerns, please contact the school. As far as administering medication, that is the school nurse's job. They will give medication to all students who need it. Sometimes students will come to school with medication, such as ibuprofen or even an EpiPen. If you see any of these things, you need to confiscate it. That means pick it up and then get it to the school nurse and let them know what student it was who brought it, so that we can contact the parent and go over how medication is supposed to enter the school. CPS is another big legal binding matter for education. Basically, if you feel, and it means reasonably believe, that a student has been neglected or abused, whether it's physically or sexually, CPS needs to be notified immediately, whether it's through a phone call or on a web page. Now, a phone call means that it is an emergency, and then they probably also ask you to call 911. If it is a non-emergency issue, that means the child is not in any danger, then it will be notified through the web page. Next, we'll talk about professionalism. Substitute teachers have a huge part in the success of each student at Caldwell ISD. Each day during the school year, Caldwell ISD utilizes and relies upon substitute teachers. Therefore, the students rely upon substitute teachers. So let's talk about the dress code for substitute teachers. Dress in a manner that sets you apart from the students. It is important for each substitute teacher to dress a bit more conservatively than the students. For elementary, you are allowed to wear jeans every day of the week with a nice top, collar, button down, things like that. For intermediate, it is slacks or pants and a nice shirt. On Wednesdays, you can wear jeans and a collared shirt, like an A&M short or a Longhorn shirt. And on Fridays, you can wear jeans and a spirit shirt, a Caldwell ISD spirit shirt. That goes the same for the junior high school as well as the high school. Make sure you come to school every day with a positive attitude. Your attitude will be picked up on by the students. And if you come in with a positive attitude, you're going to have a much better day than if you come in with a negative attitude going, I don't like this class. I've substitute taught here before. This class is not very nice. If you come in with that attitude, the students will pick up on it and it will be an awful day. But if you come in It's a fresh day with a positive attitude. Students will pick up on it and they will feed off of that positivity. Section number 3, conduct and ethics. You are to be attentive and present for the benefit of each student in the classroom. The most crucial reason you are in the classroom is to ensure safety and learning. As far as interaction goes with students, maintain a professional barrier between you and your students. Avoid leaving your students unsupervised. Avoid losing your temper, and no physical contact with students. That means like grabbing a student or corporal punishment. As far as classroom management, we utilize CHAMPS at Caldwell ISD. Therefore, we tell the students what we expect from them for each activity that we do. We talk about conversation, the C in CHAMPS. That means what is the voice level that they can use? 0 is no voice, silence. Voice level 1, whisper. Voice level 2, regular school voice. Voice level 3, outside voice. And then they need to know when they can talk. If they're in a small group setting, they should be allowed to talk. If they are taking a test, they should not be allowed to talk. H is for help. So who do the students ask to get help if they need that help? Who should they ask? Can they ask somebody at their table? Can they ask someone that's sitting beside them or in front of them? Or do they need to ask you every time they need help? The activity. What are the students going to do in the class period that day? M is for movement. Will movement be allowed? Again, if they're taking a test, do you want students wandering around the classroom? If they're doing an art project and they need art supplies, do they need to raise their hand every time, or are they allowed to move freely? P is for participation. How do you know each student participated? What is the end product that you will see so that you know that the students participated in the activity? And all of that will lead to success. Focus on behaviors that you want to see. Instead of saying no running, use walk in an orderly fashion. Instead of no talking, use voice level 0. Make sure you're always using those rules and expectations for the classroom, and let your students know that you expect them to follow those rules and expectations. As a side note, bring your own device does not mean using a device during class hours. The high school changed up their rules a little bit. If you need to know more about that, contact the high school secretary. If a student is struggling with behavior in the classroom, utilize the teachers around you. If the behavior continues, call the office. The office will let you know whether to have the student escorted by another to the office, or the staff will come and retrieve the student. For the elementary school, it is myself, Mr. Gandrud. For the intermediate school, it is Miss Luna. For the junior high school, it's Mr. Mossick. And for the high school, it'd be either Mrs. Goff or Mr. Goodley. Section number 4 is the daily routine. What that means is that you need to arrive on time, which probably means at least a half hour before your first class is scheduled to begin. You should check in with the principal or secretary. Most of the time it's going to be the secretary, and sign in on the sign-in sheet that is available at the schools. Again, you're going to report to the office. You're going to obtain any keys that you might need. You need to figure out how are you supposed to report absences or tardies, and where is the location of the restrooms and the lounge. Who are the teachers that you're going to be located near, so that if you do have some issues or some concerns, you can talk with them so that they can help you, whether it's with a lesson plan or with a behavior issue. Do any of the students in your classroom have any medical issues that you need to be aware of? And is there going to be any special school-wide activities, such as a pep rally, going on that day? Ask about student passes. Some teachers have them, some don't. Are there any special procedures that you need to be aware of for the classroom that you are taking care of that day? And then, are there any extra duties associated with your assignment? So once you get into the classroom, walk in there with confidence. Again, positive attitude and confidence go a long way. Write your name on the board, and then review the classroom expectations. Again, they should be posted within the classroom. Locate the school evacuation map, which should be located by the entry door, and read through the lesson plans. Make sure you understand them. Locate the books, papers, and materials which you'll need throughout the day. If you have a hard time finding them, again, utilize the teachers around you. Study the seating charts if there are any. And when the bell rings, stand in the doorway and greet students as they enter the classroom, making sure that you keep your eye on the students in the classroom at the same time. Again, follow the lesson plan. If you don't understand part of the lesson plan, talk to teacher near you. They should have planned that with the person that is absent, or they might be the one who did plan the lesson, and they can tell you exactly what they meant. Throughout the day, follow the lesson plans and assign duties to the best of your ability. Be fair and carry out the rewards and consequences you establish, and be positive and respectful in your interactions with students and school personnel. At the end of each class period, challenge the students to recall a project that they had or a topic that you discussed that day. Have students clean up their area, make sure that everything is in order for the next class, or take two. At the end of each class period, challenge the students to recall projects or topics that you've learned that day. Have students clean up their area, make sure that it's presentable, and remind students of any homework that is assigned to them. So here are a few tips for success. Punctuality is a must. Again, you need to have that time to be able to read over the lesson plans. Sometimes you get called at 8:05 and say, we really need a substitute teacher for the high school. You ask, okay, when does the class start? They say it started at 8:30. You're not going to get there in time. Don't worry about that. If you take that job, the high school knows that you're not going to be there at time, and they will help you get through that first class period so you'll be able to have that time to look over those lesson plans. There are 3 tips for success. Number 1, punctuality is a must. Always sign in at the front office. Number 2, refer the teacher's lesson plans. You are an extension of the teacher, and you are responsible for the education of each child in that classroom. And the better you understand the lesson plans, the better the education for each child will be. Make sure that you have your cell phone turned on silent. If an emergency does rise and you do receive a phone call, excuse yourself from the classroom after receiving support from the office. Next, we're going to talk about school safety. This is not meant to scare you. This is just meant to let you know what we do in the event of an issue that happens at school. By each door in the classroom, there should be this sign. It tells you exactly what to do if you hear one of these come over the intercom. We have lockout, get inside, lock outside doors. And then it tells you exactly what the student should do and what the teacher should do. And so it's kind of like a cheat sheet. And we'll go through each of these here in the next 10 minutes. We have lockout, lockdown, evacuate, shelter, and hold. Why do we do this? It's so that we have a shared protocol. So students, staff, first responders, and parents all know what we're doing in case of an emergency. Parents receive this letter. This letter, again, goes through what we do if we have to call one of these things. So we do have the 5 actions. They are lockout, lockdown, evacuate, shelter, and hold. First, we'll talk about lockout. So this is what you would hear over the intercom. Get inside, lock outside doors. Get inside, lock outside doors. So why do we do a lockout? Because something is dangerous near the school. Could be a criminal activity happening in the area. Could be a riot happening in the area, or it could be an animal on the playground. So what happens? During a lockout, there's no one in, no one out of the building. So students, they need to get inside the building. No student leaves the building. And then we continue business as usual. For teachers, if you're near an outside door, look out the outside door. If you see a student or staff member, get them inside and then shut the door and make sure it's locked. And then keep an eye out. If you have an out window that faces outside the building, keep an eye out just to make sure that you don't see anybody doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And then take attendance and note the time. For teachers, again, it is business as usual. Just keep teaching those students and help them learn. So who can call a lockout? Anyone can call a lockout. If you see something happening when you're outside, somebody breaking into a house or something like that, you can get in touch with the front office and say, hey, we need to do a lockout. What about class changes? If it is in the building, you may do class changes. If somebody needs to leave the building to change classes, that is not allowed. They need to stay in the building. So can you leave the school? Absolutely not during the lockout. It is not safe on the outside of a building. That's why we call it. But next we'll talk about the lockdown. So over the intercom, you'll hear lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. Lockdown, locks, lights, out of sight. So why do we do a lockdown? That means something dangerous is inside the building. It could be somebody that's not supposed to be there. It could be that somebody saw a student or staff member or somebody who's not supposed to be there carrying a weapon. Or it could be something worse. For students, they need to stay out of sight of the corridor window, not the outside window, the corridor window. They need to be silent, and they are not to open the door for anyone. For teachers, we lock and close the classroom door, turn out the lights, leave the corridor window uncovered, do not slide anything under the door that shows exactly where you are, and then maintain silence in the classroom. You may take attendance and note the time at this time. So the difference between a lockout and a lockdown out means that something is happening outside of the building. Therefore, you will not go outside, but you can continue teaching. A lockdown means that there's something inside the building. So therefore, we cannot teach anymore, and we need to get out of sight and silent. If you are outside on a lockout, we need to get you inside. If you are outside during a lockdown, we do not want you coming inside because that is where the danger is. So if you're on the outside, whether it's with yourself or with a class, you need to maneuver your way away from the building. Go to some place where you are safe and then contact the school or administration office. There is no teacher. The students know exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to shut and lock that door and get quiet. If you're in the hallway, you need to find the nearest classroom, nearest open room, get inside, lock the door. If the fire alarm sounds, you stay put. You do not leave unless you smell smoke or see fire. For students, they always ask, well, can we text our parents? In the initial stages of a lockdown, you may not text your parents. You need everything silent. As time goes on along, you start feeling it's safe. Students may then text their parents. Next, we'll talk about evacuate. So what you hear over the intercom is evacuate to a specific location, such as evacuate to the high school football field, evacuate to the high school football field. Students, they need to leave all of their stuff behind. Listen for directions from staff and teachers, and then walk in an orderly fashion to the evacuation area. For teachers at the evacuation area, take attendance. Other options. For high school and junior high, there's the self-evacuate. If there's not a teacher there and something is happening and they need to get out of there and they feel they're in danger, they are allowed to self-evacuate. They need to get to their destination or where they're going, where they feel safe, and then they need to contact the school. A police evacuation is a little different. For students and staff, make sure that your hands are visible. Therefore, you're not deemed a threat. Students are allowed to bring their phone. Students, don't be surprised if they're alone. That goes for substitute teachers as well, because the police will be loud. For teachers, make sure you have, it says grab the attendance sheet. Well, the attendance sheet is inside the red binder, which all classrooms should have. Bring your cell phones and pretty much your purse or your personal belongings, because anything left at the scene that you evacuate can be deemed part of a crime scene and it will be evidence. Teachers, make sure when you're at the evacuation site to take attendance. So again, when the police come, they're going to knock, please open up. If you hear that, do not open the door because it might not be the police. Stay silent, keep the kids silent. People who are actually there to help in a lockdown situation or a shelter situation or an evacuation situation will have keys to open doors. So what can you take with you? Again, for teachers, take your personal items because they could be deemed as evidence. Keep your hands visible to make sure that you are not a threat. And the police are going to be very loud and they're going to give very direct instructions. For a shelter, this is for any kind of a safety strategy. So there'll be shelter, tornado, shelter, tornado. So we say the action or plan to remain safe. So tornado, move to your safe zones. Hazmat, sealed vents and doors. During the shelter, always listen for instructions and be prepared for the unexpected. It may turn into an evacuation. Teachers, again, if possible, take attendance. And our school has one more action and directive. This is the hold in your classroom. So again, over the intercom, you'll hear hold in your classroom, hold in your classroom. Why do we do this? Because the hallways need to be kept clear. There could be a medical emergency happening. And so save dignity for that person. We don't want anybody walking around by them. So students, you need to remain in the classroom until there's an all clear. For teachers, remain in your classroom until the all clear, close and lock the classroom door, and then continue teaching. If the bell rings and it's time to switch classes, we do not switch classes because you need to stay in the classroom. That is what it is for. So again, we have our four actions plus one more, the hold. So who can call the actions? Anybody can call any of the actions. Who can cancel the actions? For a lockout, you'll hear it over the intercom, all clear. For shelter, you'll hear all clear. For evacuate, admin will cancel the action, and for a hold, you will hear all clear. As far as a lockdown, we will unlock doors in a lockdown situation. Again, you do not open the door for anyone. People with keys will unlock the doors. When we get to an evacuation area, or if we're doing a tornado or anything like that, inside that red binder, you will have red and green cards. The red card means that you need help. You're missing a student, someone is hurt. The green card means that you have your entire class and that everybody is okay. So again, we talked about a bunch of different things for our substitute teaching orientation. Talked about the expectations, the legal aspects, professionalism, classroom management, the daily routine, and school safety. So welcome back. We are so happy to have you. Have a great school year. Thank you.